Okay, we're here for the 11 o'clock public services meeting. Looks like I see building and planning here, but she took off. So what do you? Oh, okay.
Good morning, Mike Moss, Public Services Director. We'd like to start off with two executive sessions, one for contract negotiations and the second one, performance of a public employee, 10 minutes each.
Okay, two executive sessions, 10 minutes each, contract negotiations, performance of a public employee. Okay, we'll take care of those.
The board is extending the executive session for a period of 10 minutes until 11:30. The board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:36.
Okay, we're back from executive session. No decisions were made. We'll continue on. Building and planning.
Hello again, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. So we have the floodplain ordinance on for tomorrow as an agenda item on the board's agenda. This is the ordinance that we're repealing and replacing, Cowlitz County Code 16.25. And this is the one that the Planning Commission had 5 Planning Commission meetings, 5, there we go. We got the motion last month for 7-0 to approve the new language and to keep the 3-foot, 2-foot base flood elevation. SEPA was done in October, and so I'm going to hand it over to Wayne. We are going to recommend following FEMA's guidance and recommend to our board to maintain or to do the 1-foot base flood elevation and follow FEMA's guidance for that will, I'll let you take it.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioners. Wayne Nelson, Planning Manager. So just to back up a little bit, so this process was initiated as part of the regular update to the floodplain management ordinance, which happens periodically to assure compliance with federal regulation as far as eligibility for the flood insurance program. And so as part of that process, the Department of Ecology assisted the county and they reviewed it with respect to the state's model ordinance, which it is consistent with. DOE's role is effectively a advisory role versus a regulatory role, and that's still FEMA has that charge. Both FEMA and DOE have approved the draft ordinance in form for compliance with not only a state model, but FEMA regulations as well. So we're good there. Really, the only outstanding issue is the elevation above base flood elevations required for structures. As we've discussed previously, it's currently 2 and 3 feet respectively, depending on the water course, meaning the Toutle and Cowlitz and all others. And per the board's direction, when we present this tomorrow for consideration, we're providing a alternative recommendation, which reflects the board's wish to keep it at 1 foot above base flood elevation, which is in compliance with FEMA standards and is the minimum federal standard. And so we're recommending consistency with that.
They come up with that from sitting in the meeting. They take the last, what they consider 100-year flood, and then that's where their base is, right? And I think that was 95.
Correct, as well as studies and
Yeah.
whatnot. So, and those base flood elevations are updated from time to time as data gets better or events occur. So it's not a fixed elevation because it is subject to change based on conditions. And so that 1 foot only represents whatever the most current data
It is.
is the required minimum elevation. And so you'll, unless you have other questions or would like additional information from staff, that's largely what you'll hear tomorrow when we present it. There's really not a lot to expand on beyond that unless the board has specific or other questions.
Are there other things you would present to the public? That is to say, the big decision here is the 1 foot versus 3 feet.
So with that, if the board does, after consideration, decide to adopt their own findings, which would be necessary to substantiate the change from the planning commission's recommendations, staff would be providing the board with draft findings and a motion for consideration, and that would be available to the public as well. And I'm happy to provide those to the board ahead of time, so you have the night to review them, so you're not caught flat-footed at public hearing.
I'm just stuck down in the weeds. I've got a phobia about time commitments, and we got 15 minutes to do the whole process. So I don't know how that's going to work out. There'll be a lot of questions, I imagine. So I'm wondering if there's a way to present it such that you can, prioritize very succinct way with.
We can do that. We also have on the board's agenda that's already out there, the draft ordinance that is being presented tomorrow. There's just minor language changes, bringing it up to current, just changing language. The substantial piece is the base flood elevation
Right.
that our board will have to consider.
And I always like something like what it means to the citizens. Just that slide, is what these changes really mean to an everyday citizen. Because we could always end up arguing about.
Yep.
Shouldn't that be a capital I?
And we will do that. The biggest benefit for the citizens is that they have less restrictions when they're building. And they will not cost them as much if we take it down to the FEMA regulations.
Yeah.
And do the 1 foot, it will save them. They can build it as tall or high as they'd like. It will just, the minimum will reduce their costs.
Yeah,
that's what we're looking
implicit
for.
in what you're doing is reflecting a philosophy of putting responsibility on the individual builder to decide. And that's probably worth a statement. I suspect the chairman will say that.
Yeah. That, when in looking at the document, that was really my focus. The other red lines and stuff that, Adam updated some verbiage and stuff didn't seem like any substantial.
No,
Type-
they were very
type
minimal,
changes to-
very minimal.
Yeah,
So the big update is the map and the height.
right.
Well, the map itself, they're incorporated by reference because they're FEMA maps.
Right.
Right, and so yes, that's.
But the public should know that those maps do change from time to
Yes.
time.
Yes.
It just what you just emphasized. Today, if you were to build, you'd use this map.
Yep.
Tomorrow, you might be using a different map that
That's
we
correct.
don't control that it comes from.
Right.
So are we getting, I haven't had a chance to look through minutes, are we getting the information from the planning commission on which they base their decision, their findings and the testimony? We usually get that in the discussions. This seems to be a significant departure from the past. If I understood you correctly, they unanimously approved the 2 to 3 foot change.
And they did, correct.
Okay, and so we're basically saying, we don't care what you said. You're wrong, and we're gonna change it.
They had been workshopped prior,
Yeah.
in prior meetings. And when this came about, we brought it to the board and asked kind of where you gentlemen would like it like where the planning commission, kind of like where you would like to direct staff to help assist with the planning commission. And then when we heard what the board's wishes were, we went back to planning commission a few additional times.
And they still said they disagreed with.
My interpretation of the planning commission's recommendation was really for two reasons. One, there wasn't any, I'll say, empirical data or evidence to sway one way or the other. There wasn't evidence to support why 2 and 3 feet is necessary. And there wasn't, on the other side, there, outside of it being the federal requirement, there wasn't any data saying 1 foot is sufficient in most instances because of X. And so without that data on either side, and we did reach out to the Army Corps, to DOE, and to FEMA, and there's been studies and there's been reports and whatnot, but none of those agencies came forward with any hard numbers, any real data. And so absent that, in my opinion, it was the Planning Commission's decision to be better safe than sorry. It's 2 and 3 now. Let's not reduce it at the risk of problem arising.
So you're supplying the minutes and stuff in as part of our review materials?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes. How it affects the average citizen is an interesting interpretation because you're basically sending a message, develop more in the floodplain. You lower the standards, more land's available to be developed. So-
It doesn't increase the net developable land. It just creates an additional threshold by which they have to develop. So instead of your first habitable floor being 1 foot above that base flood elevation, whatever it may be, you're now required to do 2 or 3 feet depending on where the property is located. With the 1 foot, it leaves that discretion, that responsibility on the builder or the property owner if they want to increase it above that. And it also has no impact on the flood insurance rates. So as a community as a whole, it doesn't impact them. That's not to say at some point down the road, if we have catastrophic events and whatnot, and those rates are reevaluated, things are always subject to change. But currently this 1 versus 2 and 3 feet has no impact on the flood insurance rates for the community.
You said FEMA used the last 100-foot or 100-year flood, which was 1996 high water, right?
Typically, anytime there's a new event such as that, or through study or otherwise, they have new data, they will update their maps. Also, if a private owner hires a surveyor to go out there and check the actual elevations, they can submit a request for a letter of map amendment. There's also the letter of map revision that's typically initiated by FEMA itself. So there's a couple of different ways and processes by which flood elevation can be altered.
The point I was kind of leading to is that we call it a 100-year flood, but they happen more frequently in this
Correct.
in this region.
Right.
There was one in-
Essentially,
there was one in 1980 that wasn't caused by excessive rain.
Right.
And, so I guess I'm a little bit more skeptical when they say, oh, based
But
on,
the
based
way-
on our 100-year flood, it's not that serious.
Right.
We have this other thing that has caused a certain amount of gray hair in folks,
Right.
because it's still happening, so.
Anything else on that one?
Just an observation that we spent more than 15 minutes.
Yeah, just amongst ourselves.
The other thing on the board's agenda tomorrow is Maxwell Farms. We're excited to see this one come in front of the board. They originally applied on the subdivision in 2007. So it's finally, they've met all their preliminary approval requirements, and it's 24 lots off Garden Street out in Lexington. So there will be a final plat and Mylar for our board to sign tomorrow. The applicant should be here, and we we're excited to complete this one. It's been long overdue. And this is actually one, if we're going to talk about floodplain, that they had to meet the 2 foot, 3 foot requirement and had to bring in a lot of fill into that area before the requirement was met. So they've had to bring in a lot of additional fill into that area. So additional costs on the developer. But yeah, anyways, we're excited. This one, it'll be nice to get building permit plans in, flat lots, all same type size. So that'll be good.
And
And walking.
where's this at?
Off Garden Street out in Lexington. West Side Highway on the left, going north.
But it's,
Is that the place where they were working and put it in road and doing all that? and Now it's just kind of sitting
No,
there.
that's,
That's a different one.
that's North Lexington Flats. Yes. Garden Street is actually off one of the side that you don't see from West Side Highway. It's off of one of the side streets.
Oh. Where's it come out then on Rainbow or?
Louise.
Garden Street,
Garden.
Garden Street. Off of Louise.
I think it's
Uh,
Louise or John, I think.
I'd
Just
have
trying to
I'd-
figure what main one it
I'd have
directs
to
them to.
Go look at them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that one we're excited about. Like I said, long overdue. We're excited. And then Rick, you had brought up some citizen concerns, maybe committee, putting a committee together, or we're all about it. We think it's a fantastic idea. I just don't want to add another layer or extend time for any citizen or complainant to have to. So we
Yeah.
think it's a great idea. And maybe right now, our nuisance abatement coordinator meets pretty regularly or anytime as needed with the environmental health unit for when they have, depends on kind of whose complaint it is or which jurisdiction it's going to. And maybe if those two, maybe Andrea and Trevin, and then maybe one of your board staff wants to meet weekly, 15, 20 minutes, just to kind of what's current, what's up to date, what's,
Yeah, I think we've kind of just turned that over to Kelly and I think that's
Okay.
kind of the idea behind it. We don't want to add another layer and it'd be pretty efficient and stuff, but just as they come in and we know how to direct them or,
I appreciate that. And we will, knowing that, we will work with Kelly and make sure Trevin and Andrea know those are
yeah.
who, yep.
It just, to me, it seems if it's, I don't want a burden, but if we just seems to be having more of these type of things, and I think you probably are as pressure has. And if I know that somebody's looked and said, well, it fits here and we're doing this, then my answer when I get the email or the phone call is different than it is
Well,
now.
I think there's more of them because you as the board are more willing to listen to the citizens too. And so they want to be heard. And they appreciate that. So, I mean, it is, then they'll come knocking on our doors, but I mean, I think that's part of it. You know, you guys will listen to the citizens. We didn't always have that, so. And we have staff that are hired for these reasons, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I see this group has looked at it and says, well, it doesn't fit here, it's really just kind of if it's a neighbor's dispute, that's a
Yep.
different arena. I mean,
Neighbors dispute, or if it's not our jurisdiction, we
Yeah.
just push them to the right jurisdiction.
right.
Thank you.
Once again, Mike Moss, Public Services Director. We'll try to be quick with the last few items here so we don't go into your lunch period. The next item we have is the USDA Wildlife Control Contract. That's actually on your agenda tomorrow on consent, and I want to give you some background on that. It's a one-year contract for helping us control some nutria and also removing and trapping beaver. It's an up to $20,000 contract. They charge $55 an hour. To just give you some context in the past, a beaver last year got removed by Diking District number, I think that was number 1. Lexington Diking District, and it cost about $1,200. Diking District number 3 had a lot of nutria they had to remove, and it cost about $12,000. We don't have that much nutria, but we do have some beavers working throughout the county. So we got this contract in place with USDA to be able to trap and relocate those beavers. So, and it's a standard USDA contract that's, like I said, it has a pretty large dollar amount attached to it, but it's up to, and it's charged per hour for them to come trap and remove. So don't be scared by the dollar amount that's attached to that contract.
You said 20,000?
Yeah, I think that the contract is 20,102. So you'll see that tomorrow, and there's a contract good through, it starts November 1, going through September 30th of 2024. And then easements for Todd Road is also on tomorrow. Susan Eugenius, the county engineer, will be online along with Patrick Harbison. This is for a project that was completed in the early 2000s in Kalama. Unfortunately, some of the deeds were recorded incorrectly, so there's 6 new deeds tomorrow on the agenda. I couldn't tell you exactly what was wrong with those, but the errors were found when they started working on the deeds for South Cloverdale, and they were reviewing the easements and deeds on Todd Road and found the mistakes and want to correct those in the system. So they will, like I said, re-record those new ones. And so Susan and Patrick have the details of what they may have found if you have questions tomorrow on the consent agenda. Or if you want to, I can always have her, maybe she's working from home today, send you an email of what the errors were on those 6 items.
Do
6
you know if they are east or west of the freeway?
Good time. I'm guessing east.
Okay.
But that'd be a
Is there a
guess.
portion of Todd Road that goes under the
yeah.
freeway?
On this, going towards the.
Or is it just on the east side?
It's underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I believe these are on the east side connecting up to Cloverdale,
Okay.
since that's where the next project's at. So,
So we don't,
unfortunately, it's a 20-year-old project
yeah,
that they found the deeds in.
so you don't know if it's just clerical type stuff.
I'm
or-
hoping it is the
I mean, I don't
information I got.
I don't want to be taken from somebody if,
No, I don't believe it. That's why I said maybe it's best if Susan could reach out to you guys today with the email and say exactly what the errors were. She texted me this morning and said that's the reason those were on for tomorrow.
There's no change of money.
No, I think it's mainly because of its change of ownership too, is actually when they found some of the errors on here. So that's why I think it might be,
well, if this project's been completed for 20 years
yes, correct.
and no homeowner has found an issue at this point in time. So I'm assuming it's mostly clerical.
I would
Well,
guess, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it is always interesting to see where the road is built and where the center line is on the
Correct,
map.
yeah,
It's
it could be,
often-
it could have been from the
pavement is-
survey,
Yeah,
right, yep.
yeah, so
Yeah. But I'll have Susan reach out to you guys today.
Yeah.
apparently land moves over time.
It does in California. Anybody on the fault line, it does.
And talking about the Cloverdale project, we do have 12 warranty deeds that deal with permanent easements and also temporary construction easements. We'd like you guys to give permission to the chairman to sign these. They add up to about $80,000 worth of easement fees, dollars, that we'd actually put on the agenda in the next few weeks after we get these recorded. So if we could have the chairman sign today, and we'll get them recorded and get them back to front of you guys at a later date. This is for the South Cloverdale project that will be taking place in 2024.
So did you, these have all been negotiated? These
Yes,
are
they
the
have.
negotiated prices?
Correct, yes. Some improvements, also we did some timber cruising to the value of trees, some replacement of driveways, and then some, like I said, temporary construction easements, and then some full-time permanent easements.
And you mentioned that these are county dollars. Overall, this project though is subject to quite a few, couple of different major grants, right?
Yeah,
I
federal
mean,
dollars and state dollars, correct. I think it's about a $5-6 million project. I don't have the exact details in my head, but the local match is very small out of that.
Right, that's what I thought, so.
Anything pertaining to right of way, it's actually a county cost, though. We don't pass those on through grants. So this would be county road fund.
Okay.
Do you need a motion on that,
So
Mike?
we
Yeah.
need a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the negotiated leases or the negotiated right-of-way agreements on South Cloverdale Road. Anyway, I move we do that.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion. Comments, questions? Not seeing any. Call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You got it.
The last item I have on the list today is from facilities maintenance. I gave you guys a couple pictures. Actually, there's some more up here on the counter from the HHS parking lot, Health and Human Services. That got, we ground that out with Lakeside Industries and overlaid paved that on Thursday, Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday of last week. And then Friday, we put new curb stops in and painted. At the same point, that company went to North parking lot at HOJ, Hall of Justice, and restriped that parking lot. And so we're pretty much finalized that project, phase 1 for this year. Phase 2 next summer, we'll be doing grinding and paving the north parking lot that we just striped. We are also putting new signage in the north parking lot on the building for those, I think there's 12 stalls on the north side that's underneath the overhang, and putting up new sheriff parking only signs on the dike. So we should be completing that project here in the next week or so. But at the end of the year, it's quite a task for crews to get, we did the trees and we did the south and the east parking lots and HHS parking lots all in the last 2 months. So quite an improvement over there, and hopefully take care of a lot of the ponding issues at the same time for the parking lots. So
So when we talked about the parking lot at the health department, HHS building, there was some discussion about redoing the front entrance because there's a little alcove. And this is what you have pictured. Is that the completed project, or is that
That's-
before any improvements have
that's
happened?
before any improvements. I still don't think you're getting more bids for the alcove area for the door there. I think they initially came in kind of high. So I think they're still working on getting better pricing and coming back to you guys with options. I think Gina James and them mentioned last week, we used to have big flower pots and some barricades up front, but people actually just camp behind those and use those pots for other reasons than flowers.
Yeah, they're,
Do you know if anything similar is planned for the museum? I know that back door is still
Yeah,
wide open.
yeah, that's been a challenging area for Joseph back there. I know we put some better lighting in that area, or maintenance did. But it might be as easy there as a cyclone fence with a gate, since it is kind of a high area, easy access to put something in. That might be, might not be the best option for HHS, but certainly be a cheaper option rather than doing a full pull down, lockable, not see-through wall, like the fence they're trying to put in a barrier. But I've seen other places do that more of a cost-effective way of just doing a tall cyclone fence and kind of boxing that area in.
Kind of like the iron gate that's crossed at the church.
I don't remember that one. Right here?
Yeah.
That church? I'll have to look at that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that one
pretty
in there.
simple, pretty simple. We see it from our office there.
Window, okay. So they put a barricade in their front doors with just iron gate.
Well, it's at the main, I don't think it's a kind of a side entrance.
Yeah.
That has the gate to it.
Okay. Take a look.
Anyway, no idea.
Okay.
All right. And you've been taking care of the angry email? The disgruntled
We,
citizen?
I think it's actually a county employee. Yeah. So it was just the timing of that email. The next few days, we had other things going on in that same parking lot. While we were back there, we also worked on that north storm drain. We did the south and east storm drains, but we were working on the north one. While we had the lot shut down already for striping, we went ahead, it actually has a pump system in that north drain to pump it up to get it out of there. So we made sure the pumps were working, which they are, and made sure there was no clogs, and then look through the lines with camera to make sure that there was no damage or any failure of that pipe. So we should have better drainage there, but Time will tell. I'm sure the employees will tell us when it's not draining well.
All right.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Savannah? Any miscellaneous before we adjourn this one? Okay. We will adjourn.